I met Rachel the year after I graduated. I just started my first real job at a mid-sized construction firm, mostly doing admin work and project bids. I didn't have much back then, an old Corolla, a rented room in a house with 2 other guys, and a cheap suit that didn't quite fit. Rachel worked at the coffee shop down the street from our office. She made an oat milk latte like it was her craft, and she never spelled my name right on the cup. The first time she wrote Greg instead of Gabe, I corrected her with a smile, and she just shrugged and said, "You look more like a Greg." I started going there every morning. It wasn't some dramatic courtship. No grand gestures. Just small talk that got longer every day. She was quick-witted, always had a comeback ready, and laughed in a way that made you want to keep talking. One day, after weeks of ordering the same coffee, I asked her out. She didn't make a big deal out of it, just nodded and said, "Took you long enough." We went to a local bar on our first date. Nothing fancy. Beer, nachos, and a shared booth with sticky seats. She asked questions, real ones. Not surface-level stuff. She wanted to know where I grew up, why I left, what I wanted from the next 10 years. I asked her about her art, her family, what she'd do if money wasn't a factor. That night, something clicked. We moved in together after a year. Got a small place outside the city, just big enough for a double bed and a narrow kitchen. Rent was tight. Our schedules didn't always line up. But we made it work. I'd leave her notes when I left early. She'd bring me coffee after late shifts. We built habits without thinking about them. Routines that made life feel stitched together in the right way. After a while, Rachel quit the cafe and went full-time into graphic design. Freelance work at first, small commissions, logo designs, wedding invitations. She hustled, built a name slowly, and started picking up steady clients. I supported us while she grew her business. Never felt resentful about it. I believed in her. She was good. My own work moved up, too. I got promoted, then promoted again. Started leading teams on builds across the state. We talked about getting a house, then actually did it, nothing big, just a solid 3-bedroom in a neighborhood with decent schools and wide sidewalks. We didn't have kids yet, but we talked like we would. Eventually. Rachel made the house feel like home fast. Thrifted furniture. Art prints. Plants she'd name and talk to when she thought I wasn't listening. Our kitchen always smelled like vanilla or something spiced. She painted the guest bathroom yellow because it felt honest. I never asked what that meant. Our social circle stayed small, close friends, mostly from my side. My best friend Chris was a fixture in our lives. He came over for dinners, helped us move, even joined us on a couple of weekend trips. Rachel liked him. They got along. He was funny, dependable, the kind of guy you could call at 2 a.m. if your car broke down. I'd known him since I was 14. He was like a brother. Life wasn't perfect, but it was good. We were building something. Slow and steady. Just how we liked it. After we bought the house, everything began to settle into place. It was a quiet neighborhood, fenced yards, sleepy weekends, families that waved when you passed by. Rachel picked it for the light. She said the way the afternoon sun hit the living room windows made her feel like everything inside was worth holding on to. I didn't argue. It was a good house. Solid bones, open kitchen, a garage big enough for my tools and her bike. The first year was spent in renovations. We painted every room ourselves. Rachel had a color palette laid out on the floor, paint chips fanned across the hardwood like a deck of cards. I was in charge of the sanding and priming. She did the finishing touches. Every weekend we blasted music, wore old clothes, and made a mess. I remember one Sunday in particular, we just painted the bedroom blue, and she smeared a stripe of it across my cheek with her brush. I chased her down the hall, paint dripping from both of us. It was stupid and fun, and when we collapsed on the floor laughing, it felt like something permanent had been stamped into place. She worked from home most days. I liked coming back to find her on the couch with her laptop, a blanket around her legs, earbuds in, completely absorbed in her work. I'd sit on the armrest and nudge her until she looked up. That was our thing. The tiny interruptions. It made the space feel lived in. I started taking on more responsibilities at work, larger scale contracts, more travel. I wasn't gone for long stretches, but I was gone often enough to appreciate what it felt like to come home to someone who wanted you there. Rachel always greeted me at the door like I'd been gone a month, even if it was just 3 days. That kind of welcome stays with you. We kept things simple. Movie nights on the couch, wine on the porch, tacos on Wednesdays. She had a running list of restaurants she wanted to try, and we checked off a new one every month. We weren't extravagant, but we never let things get dull. That was important to her. On weekends, we drove up the coast or took day trips out of town. There was a small lake a few hours north we returned to each spring. We'd rent a cabin, make breakfast together, spend the afternoons reading in hammocks. She loved that lake. She said the silence there was the kind that didn't ask questions. We hosted friends now and then. Small groups. I grilled, she set the table with matching napkins. People always said our house felt intentional. I think they meant comfortable. Chris came by sometimes, usually just to hang out, watch a game, catch up. He and Rachel got along well enough. They joked with each other like people who'd known each other long enough to skip the awkward phases. But that wasn't unusual. Rachel got along with most people. She had that warmth. The kind you didn't question. Everything about our life felt earned. Not given. Not lucky. Just slowly built, like bricks laid down with purpose. Sometimes, late at night, we'd sit in bed, lights off, our hands tangled together in the quiet, and she'd say, "We did good, didn't we?" And I'd squeeze her hand, and say, "Yeah. We did." By the time our 4th anniversary rolled around, it felt like we'd hit a rhythm that was ours and only ours. I'd finally paid off the last of my student loans, and Rachel's business was running strong. She'd picked up a few long-term clients, small businesses and nonprofits mostly, and built up a reputation for being creative but reliable. People trusted her. She never overpromised. She delivered sharp designs, clean logos, elegant brand kits, and quietly made her mark. We set up an office space for her in the spare bedroom. I built her a custom desk over one weekend, just 2 planks of dark walnut and matte black legs. She lit up when she saw it. It wasn't perfect, one corner dipped slightly, but she said she loved it more because it was mine. My own work was still moving forward. I was managing more people now, overseeing entire projects from start to finish. It came with stress, but also freedom. We weren't rich, but we were past the point of having to worry every time the car made a weird noise or the grocery bill ran a little high. That kind of stability changes how you sleep at night. We didn't throw big parties or travel abroad, but we marked milestones in our own way. For our anniversary, we booked a weekend at a small vineyard upstate. It was quiet, surrounded by hills, with rooms that smelled faintly of oak and lavender. We tasted wines, walked the rows of vines at sunset, and spent one entire afternoon lying in bed with the windows open, doing nothing but listening to the breeze. I don't remember what we talked about, only that her hand stayed in mine the whole time. Rachel loved little routines, and over time they became rituals. Every Saturday morning she made the same French toast, crisp on the edges, soft in the middle, drizzled with real maple syrup. We'd eat barefoot at the kitchen island, flipping through newspapers on our tablets, not always speaking but always sharing the space. Every third Friday, she'd pick a random movie she thought I hadn't seen, foreign, indie, sometimes completely bizarre, and we'd make popcorn and settle in like it was a premiere. We had a chalkboard wall by the kitchen where we scribbled notes, to-dos, even inside jokes. I once drew a ridiculous cartoon version of us. She added word bubbles where we were arguing over who finished the last scoop of ice cream. It stayed there for months. Family asked about kids now and then, but we weren't rushing. We'd talked about it, agreed we wanted them eventually, but we didn't treat it like a deadline. We had time. That was the beauty of it. Everything felt like it was unfolding at its own pace. Rachel's parents visited once a year. Mine came by more often, they lived closer, and they always said the same thing, "You two seem good." And we were. We really were. We had habits, laughter, shared playlists and old jokes that no one else would understand. We'd argue sometimes, sure. About clutter, dinner plans, who left the bathroom light on. But it was never deep. It passed quickly, with a sigh or a smile. I'd come home from work, and she'd be there, barefoot in the kitchen or curled on the couch, and the whole day would settle in around me. And I thought, more than once, if this is all we ever get, it's enough. By the 5th year, everything had found its place. The house no longer felt like something we were moving into, it felt lived in, layered with moments. The walls held a quiet kind of comfort. Each room had its rhythm. The kitchen always smelled like garlic or citrus, the den collected soft afternoon light, and our bedroom stayed cool even in the heat of summer. We'd made it ours without saying much about it, just small choices, one at a time. Rachel's business had become more than a hustle. She had real clients now, steady ones who recommended her to others. She even turned down a few projects when her calendar got too full, which she never used to do. She liked working in her office with the door cracked open, music playing low, a cup of tea forgotten beside her keyboard. I liked hearing the keys tapping when I came down the hall. It sounded like movement. Progress. My work stayed demanding, but I had enough experience now that the stress didn't bite like it used to. I had a solid team under me. I trusted them. I didn't need to micromanage. That gave me room to breathe, to come home a little earlier, to say yes to more of the small things, errands with Rachel, spontaneous late-night drives, even just a trip to get ice cream and sit on the tailgate watching cars pass under streetlights. We'd settled into routines without realizing it. Sunday mornings meant coffee on the porch. Wednesday nights were for takeout and the show we never watched live. She always fell asleep first. I always carried the empty glasses to the sink before bed. It didn't feel boring, it felt earned. We'd carved a rhythm into the noise of adult life and made it hum. Rachel still surprised me sometimes. She'd bring home something from the store she thought I'd like. Or leave notes on the bathroom mirror, funny ones, flirtatious ones. I kept a few tucked in my drawer. She had a way of remembering little things I didn't even know I'd mentioned. Like the watch I said I liked in passing that showed up on my birthday, wrapped in brown paper and string. We were close. Really close. We finished each other's sentences in that cliché way people joke about. I could read her mood just by the way she moved her shoulders when she walked through the door. She knew when I was about to fall asleep just by how I exhaled. Those things accumulate, and you think they mean something permanent. We still saw friends, but not as often. Life got busy. Weekends booked up fast. The people we did keep close were the ones who never asked too much of us, who felt easy to be around. I liked hosting small dinners. Rachel made charcuterie boards like she was training for a competition. I grilled. We both cleaned up. We worked as a unit. Every once in a while, someone would ask us what the secret was. How we kept it going so smoothly. And we'd laugh, because the truth was, we didn't think about it that way. It wasn't about keeping things alive. It was about showing up. Again and again. Every day. With coffee, with a smile, with effort when it was needed and silence when it wasn't. That's what we had. A life we built with both hands. And I was proud of it. It started with something so small I almost didn't notice it. Rachel had always been good at staying on top of things, appointments, groceries, birthdays. Her head was organized in a way mine wasn't. She made lists and actually followed them. But that week, something slipped. We were supposed to go to her cousin's engagement dinner on a Saturday, an event she'd helped plan, and she forgot. Completely. She didn't mention it until we were already halfway through dinner at home, both of us in sweatpants, eating leftovers off chipped plates. She froze mid-bite. Oh my God. That was tonight. I looked up. What was? The engagement dinner. Shannon's thing. I blinked. You're kidding. She stood up, looking at her phone. She scrolled, checking messages. I thought it was next weekend. That wasn't like her. At all. I expected her to panic, to call and apologize, to ask me to grab my keys and race over late. But she didn't. She sat back down slowly and just shook her head, letting out a soft laugh. Wow. I really screwed that up. I didn't push it. Everyone's allowed to forget something now and then. But it lingered with me. Not because of the mistake, but because of how little it seemed to rattle her. A few days later, I noticed she'd stopped writing on the chalkboard wall by the kitchen. That might not sound like much, but Rachel updated it all the time. Even if it was just a note about trash day or something stupid I'd said. It had been blank for over a week. I asked if she was going to draw something new, and she looked at it like it was a window that had fogged over. I've been busy, she said. Work's been a lot. That was true. She'd mentioned a few new clients. Nothing unusual there. Except, when I asked what kind of projects she was doing, she gave me a vague wave of the hand and said, branding stuff. Mostly logos. One weird corporate gig I'm trying to get out of. She'd never been vague before. Rachel loved talking about her projects. She used to pull me over to her screen to ask what I thought about fonts or layouts, even if she ignored my answers. Now it felt like her work lived behind a wall I wasn't supposed to look over. Again, I let it go. One evening, I came home a little earlier than usual. My last meeting got cancelled, and I figured I'd surprise her with takeout. Her car was in the driveway, but the house was quiet. Lights off, doors open. I found her in the bedroom, just sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone with her back to the door. She didn't hear me come in. When I said her name, she jumped like she'd been somewhere else entirely. Hey, I said. You okay? She forced a smile. Yeah. Just zoning out. You sure? She stood up and came over to kiss my cheek. Of course. I didn't mention the phone. I didn't ask what she was zoning out about. I just nodded and held up the bag of food. Got your favorite. We ate quietly that night. Not uncomfortably. Just quietly. She was present. Laughing at the right moments. Asking me about my day. But something had shifted. I couldn't name it yet. Couldn't touch it. But it was there, like a song we both knew playing just slightly out of tune. Rachel started leaving the house more often, but without her usual rhythm. She'd always had a kind of structure to her days. She liked routine, mornings spent working, a late lunch, errands in the afternoon. I knew her patterns. I didn't need to check up on her to know where she probably was. But lately, she'd leave mid-morning with no warning, say she had to run out real quick, and not come back for hours. She'd return flushed and distracted, sometimes holding coffee she didn't finish, sometimes empty-handed like she'd forgotten what she left for. When I asked where she went, she'd answer, but the words never felt quite right. Oh, I had to drop something off for a client. Target run. Nothing exciting. Just needed to clear my head. That one stuck with me. Not because it was unusual, but because she'd never said it before. Rachel wasn't the type to need clearing. She was steady. Focused. A head clearer by nature. And if she did feel off, she told me, until now. One afternoon, I came home from work early again. This time on purpose. I don't even know why. Something told me to. Her car was gone. I waited. No message. No note. She walked in close to 6, later than usual, surprised to see me on the couch. "Hey," she said, setting her bag down. "You're home early. Wanted to knock some emails out here." She nodded, then walked into the kitchen, moving quickly, like someone behind schedule. She poured herself a glass of wine, didn't ask if I wanted one, and leaned against the counter. "How was your day?" she asked. "Good. Quiet." She nodded again. Her eyes flicked to her phone, then away. She started talking about a new client, something to do with a local boutique, and I asked her a few questions. Nothing too specific. Just enough to see if the details matched up. They did, more or less, but they landed wrong. Like reading a script from memory, not from meaning. The next morning, I checked the calendar on the wall, hers, not mine. She hadn't updated it in nearly 2 weeks. There were scribbles from earlier in the month, but the rest was blank. That wasn't like her either. When she came into the kitchen, still in her robe, I pointed to it. "You giving up on being organized?" She smiled faintly. "It's all in my phone now." "Oh." A pause hung between us. I waited to see if she'd offer anything else, what appointments, what reminders, what her day looked like, but she just walked to the sink and turned on the faucet. That evening, while folding laundry, I noticed something missing. One of my hoodies, the gray one she always stole when she was cold, wasn't in the pile. I asked her if she'd seen it, and she hesitated a little too long before saying she thought it was in the wash. It wasn't. I checked later. Not in the hamper. Not in the basket. Not draped over the couch like usual. It was just gone. That shouldn't have meant anything. But I'd started looking at the small things differently now. Not because I wanted to, because I couldn't stop myself. Like someone trying to retrace their steps in a house they no longer trusted. Everything still looked the same. But there was a current underneath it all. And I was beginning to feel the static. I stopped expecting her to reach for me in bed. That was the first thing I let go of. Slowly. Without resentment, without words. Just a quiet understanding that the space between us at night wasn't something she was trying to fix anymore. Rachel used to sleep close. Not always curled into me, but close enough that I could feel her hand on my arm, her foot tucked near mine, the shape of her breath in rhythm with my own. Now she slept further away, turned toward the wall, shoulders tense, the blanket gathered tight to her side. I told myself it was just stress. Work, maybe. Hormones. A passing thing. But it never passed. Our conversations grew thinner, too. Not shorter, just emptier. We still talked, still made plans, still texted throughout the day. But the texture was gone. No teasing, no little nonsense phrases we used to share. Just flat updates, home late. Grabbed groceries. Don't wait up. She still smiled. Still kissed me goodbye in the mornings. Still laughed when we watched sitcom reruns. But it was like living with a well-rehearsed version of her, like the performance was there, but the actor had left the stage. I told myself not to overthink it. But even that didn't sound like me anymore. One Friday, I made dinner. Nothing fancy, just pasta, garlic bread, a bottle of wine. I lit a candle. Not for romance, just to see if she'd notice. She did. She smiled and said, "You're sweet," kissed me on the cheek, and sat down. She ate half her plate, checked her phone twice, and said she was too tired for a movie. Went to bed early. I sat there by myself, watching the candle burn down, wondering how we'd gone from slow dancing in the kitchen to barely brushing shoulders in the hallway. I couldn't put a name to it. Couldn't accuse her of anything. There were no late-night phone calls, no strange names on her lock screen, no lipstick stains or secret credit card charges. Just a shift in temperature. A hush where there used to be heat. One afternoon, I came home to find her talking on the phone in the backyard. She didn't see me through the kitchen window. She was pacing, barefoot, one hand on her hip, her voice low but animated. Not angry. Not sad. Just, different. I stood there watching for a minute, trying to guess who was on the other end. I stepped out and called her name, and she jumped. She smiled fast, covered it too quickly. Work call, she said. Clients being needy. I nodded, said nothing, and went back inside. Later that night, I picked up her phone by mistake. It buzzed on the table, and I thought it was mine. We had similar cases. I looked down at the notification. Hey, made me laugh so hard today. You're bad. No name. Just that. She walked into the room as I was holding it. Oh, that's for me, she said, smoothly. Group thread. My client's wife keeps sending memes. She reached for it casually, but her eyes were too alert. I didn't press. Didn't ask to see the thread. I just handed it over, kissed her on the head, and walked away. But that night, I couldn't sleep. And for the first time, I started replaying moments in my head like a detective. And the silence between us wasn't quiet anymore. It was waiting for something to break. It was a Thursday night. Nothing special. Just a simple dinner at our place. Rachel had made chicken, her sister brought a salad, and I grilled vegetables in the backyard. It was the kind of dinner we used to host all the time. Easy, casual, surrounded by familiar voices. Chris was there, of course. He was always there. My best friend since high school. He'd been with us through everything, the move, the wedding, the housewarming party. He joked with Rachel like they were siblings. Comfortable. Harmless. I never thought twice about it. That night, everyone sat around the table talking over each other, laughing about some terrible show Rachel's sister made us all watch the week before. Rachel was sitting across from me, hair pulled back, glass of wine in her hand. She looked relaxed. Happy, even. I remember thinking how nice it was to have people around again, to hear the sound of real laughter filling the house. Then her phone buzzed. She reached for it instinctively, habit, muscle memory. It lit up, and I glanced at it without thinking. I wasn't trying to see anything. But I saw it. The preview of the message. Tell your idiot husband I'll be over once he's out of the way. My stomach dropped. I don't even remember what I was saying. I just stopped. Everything around me kept going, conversation, laughter, forks against plates, but I couldn't hear any of it. The room had gone silent in my head. Rachel didn't move. I looked at her. She saw me staring. Her eyes dropped to her phone. She didn't even try to hide the screen. She froze, completely still. Then I saw her thumb slide the message away. I kept my voice steady. Who was that? She blinked. Her lips parted, but no words came. Rachel, I said again, low and even. Who just sent that? She shook her head slightly, barely, and gave me the softest, weakest, it's nothing. Chris shifted in his chair. I turned to him. He looked back at me, confused, eyebrows raised. What's going on? Rachel stood up. Sit down, I told her. She didn't. Then, like a firework in a closed room, her sister, God bless her, spoke without thinking. Oh my God. That was Chris, wasn't it? Silence. Chris stared at her. Rachel's face drained of color. I stood up. The room fell apart in slow motion. Rachel stammered, something about a joke, a misunderstanding. Chris tried to laugh it off, said it was just messing around, but his voice was tight, high-pitched, hollow. No one else said a word. I looked at both of them, at my wife and my best friend, and everything I'd been trying not to see finally stood up in front of me, uninvited, naked, and loud. I didn't yell. Not there. I didn't throw a plate or slam a chair. I just looked at Rachel one last time and said, "You'll pack your things tonight." Then I turned to Chris, looked him straight in the eyes, and said, "And you'll regret this every single day that follows." He didn't answer. Couldn't. Rachel followed me into the kitchen as I walked out. She kept saying my name. Over and over. But it didn't sound like hers anymore. Not to me. And I wasn't listening. Because the part of me that trusted her, that built with her, grew with her, believed in her, had just been gutted in front of the people we used to call family. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of the bed while she packed, watching her fumble with drawers, hangers, and excuses. She kept asking to talk. She said it wasn't what it looked like. That it had been stupid. A mistake. That it didn't mean anything. The more she said those words, the more hollow the room felt. "You were with him," I said once. She didn't deny it. I got up. Walked to the window. Looked out over the street. Our quiet little neighborhood, where everyone watered their lawns and smiled on cue. How many nights had she driven home from him straight to here, to me? When she came downstairs, her suitcase wheels ticking against the hardwood, I was waiting at the bottom. I didn't help her. I didn't open the door. I stood still while she struggled with her bag and tried not to cry. She paused in the entryway, eyes pleading. "Gabe, please. Can we at least get out?" She froze. "Now," I said. Before I stopped being polite about it. She stepped outside. And I slammed the door behind her. Then I walked upstairs, grabbed every drawer that still held her things, and emptied them into garbage bags. I didn't care what went where: makeup, perfume, notebooks, slippers. I dumped it all. When I got to the closet, I ripped hangers from the rod and hurled them out the bedroom window one by one, watching them scatter across the lawn. A neighbor from 2 houses down stood across the street, arms folded, just watching. I didn't care. I wanted the world to see. I wanted everyone to know this was what happened when you burned someone loyal. After I threw the last of her things onto the grass, I grabbed my phone. And I called Chris. He picked up after 3 rings. "You really want to talk right now, man?" he said, his voice groggy like I'd woken him from a nap with someone else's wife. "You think this is over?" I asked. A pause. "You've made your point, Gabe." "No. I haven't," I said, my voice low and sharp. "But I will. See, I've got those videos. From our last Vegas trip. Remember? The ones you asked me to delete off my old drive? I didn't. You were pretty generous with your private life in front of a camera." "Gabe. Shut up and listen. You're going to resign from your job at the firm. Tomorrow. You're going to tell everyone you're stepping down because of a personal matter. If I hear otherwise, those videos. They go live. You wouldn't do that." "I would do worse," I said. "You called me an idiot. Now you'll find out what a real one looks like when he stops giving a damn." He was silent. "I meant every word, Chris. You'll regret this. You already do." I hung up. I stood there, breathing hard, phone in my hand, shaking not with sadness, but with clarity. Everything I'd built, my marriage, my friendship, my faith in both, had been bulldozed. I was standing in the rubble now, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid of what came next. I was done being careful. By the next morning, the videos were queued. I didn't post them, yet. I didn't have to. Chris knew I would if I said I would. I uploaded everything to a secure cloud folder, titled it with his full name, set the permissions so he could see it was real. Then I sent him the link with a single message. Try me. He resigned the next day. No explanation. Just a short internal email sent to the entire office, effective immediately, I'll be stepping away to deal with a personal issue. No goodbyes. No follow-up. Just disappeared like a bad headline people whisper about. I made sure the whisper became a roar. It wasn't hard. I called a few people who'd always looked up to Chris, made a few well-placed remarks about why he had to go. I didn't lie. I didn't even have to say much. The implication did the work. By the end of the week, half the office knew what happened. The other half assumed worse. I didn't try to control the story. I just let it spread. Rachel tried calling. Several times. I blocked her number. She emailed, too. The first one was desperate. The second was furious. The third one, days later, was quiet. A long letter about how she'd lost herself in something she didn't understand. How it wasn't just about Chris. How she still loved me. I didn't answer. I printed the email, tore it in half, and threw it in the same trash can where her wedding dress now sat, crumpled at the bottom under a broken hanger and a bottle of dried-up foundation. I saw her once after that. She came back to the house while I was working in the garage. I saw her car pull up through the side window. She didn't get out at first. Just sat there. I walked out and stood in the driveway. She finally stepped out, no makeup, eyes swollen, sweatshirt too big. She looked like someone trying to find their way back into a life they'd burned down. "Gabe," she said. I didn't speak. I don't know what to say anymore. There's nothing left to say. Her eyes searched mine, like maybe there was still a door somewhere inside me, unlocked. I didn't mean to. You did, I said. You meant it every time you invited him into our bed with your silence. Every time you sat next to me knowing what you were doing. She blinked. Her mouth opened, closed. I just want to fix it. You can't, I said. And even if you could, I wouldn't let you. She didn't cry this time. I think she'd run out of tears. She got back in the car, started the engine, and I walked back into the garage before she pulled away. Didn't watch her go. Didn't need to. Later that night, I sent a group text to our mutual friends, those who were still pretending not to know. In case you're wondering, yes. Rachel and Chris. While we were married. While I trusted them both. You decide what kind of friends you want to be from here on out. The fallout wasn't mine to manage. I didn't need sympathy. I didn't want apologies. I just wanted the silence that follows after a fire, when everything fake has already turned to ash. I went to bed alone that night. The house felt cleaner than it had in years. I didn't feel victorious. But I felt free. The house is quieter now. Not just empty, quiet. Like it's breathing differently. The floors don't creak the same. The kitchen feels larger. I can hear the hum of the refrigerator in a way I never noticed before. There's no one interrupting the silence with movement, no perfume in the hallway, no forgotten cardigan over the back of a chair. At first, I thought I'd feel lonely. But I don't. Not exactly. There's grief, sure. For the man I was, for the life I thought I had. But it's a clean grief. Not tangled up in hope anymore. The truth stripped everything down to its bones. And now I see it all clearly. People ask if I miss her. I don't know how to answer that. I miss the person I believed she was. I miss the way I used to trust without blinking. But her? No. Not the version that lied to me with her eyes while I kissed her goodnight. Chris hasn't tried to reach out. Not once. Coward silence. I don't expect he ever will. The funny thing is, people keep calling me strong. Like I chose this, like walking away was power. But it didn't feel like strength. It felt like survival. Like holding on to the last solid piece of earth while the rest of the world caved in. Sometimes I sit in the backyard where we used to have wine at dusk. I listen to the wind, the traffic, the ordinary sounds of life moving on. I let them pass through me. I haven't forgiven her. I don't think I ever will. But I'm not carrying her anymore. Not in my chest. Not in my breath. Not in the quiet corners of my day. She left the moment she opened that door for someone else and closed it behind me. I'm just the one who finally realized it. The story is over. The damage is done. But I'm still here. And for now, that's enough.